serious friends of sociopath psychopaths? What was your most uncomfortable moment with them? Story 1. My sister is a sociopath. It took me a lot of years to realize this and stop rationalizing it. I'm a diabetic and have been in comas. During the last one in 2015, after a year of no contact, she showed up at the hospital saying I had expressed to her that my wishes were do not resuscitate. About 12 of my friends shouted her down, and I woke up 3 days later on my own. If I had coded during that time, however, there would have been a lot of gray area around if they were allowed to revive me. About 4 months later, she took out a life insurance policy on me and asked me to sign it. I said no, lol, I no longer speak to her. Oh man, this blew up. I should add that I now have very clear wishes notarized and copies kept with my doctors and trusted friends. She's not taking me out that easily. Thank you guys for being concerned. It's great advice for everyone in a medical situation to have just in case. Story 2. This kid in my 8th grade class. He showed us a video of him lighting a cat on fire while it was alive. He thought it was funny. We reported the video to the school, and he was apprehended next day. I believe you can find a news story online about it. It happened in Maryland a few years ago. Story 3. I dated one once. Didn't realize it until much later when the abuse was so thick I couldn't breathe. The one situation that sticks out the most was one night, completely unsolicited, he looked at me solemnly and said, if you ever left me, I would find you and kill you. 11 years of like that. Suffice to say, I'm glad. I've got an entire country between myself and him now. Story 4. When he told my GF sitting beside me at the time that if she did something horrible to me and we broke up, that he would murder me for her. Edit clarity, hopefully that helped. Story 5. I was making some brownies. My sister was visiting for some reason. Maybe it was Christmas. Anyway, I like my brownies gooey and hot. So I'm cutting into them a little earlier than I should. Sister flips the out and starts beating on me, grabbing heavier and more dangerous weapons from whatever she can reach, pans, rolling pins, etc. Becomes a scuffle where she keeps screaming, stop hitting me, while all I'm doing is grabbing her wrist to avoid taking one to the head. Maybe it's not the most uncomfortable she's made me, or the most evil thing she's done, and she's done worse to people we aren't related to, I know. But when people ask, why is your sister so crazy? That's the memory that comes into my head, her gigantic freak out over brownies that I was making. Edit, that's not sociopathy. Thread title also includes psychopaths. Wikipedia, no psychiatric or psychological organization, has sanctioned a diagnosis titled psychopathy. Bing Dictionary, a person suffering from chronic mental disorder with abnormal or violent social behavior. Story 6. We were cleaning our guns. This guy pointed the gun at me and asked me if I trusted him. Do you think the gun is unloaded? He asked me. I could be negligent or evil, and I could left a bullet in there. He pulled the trigger, laugh, and carry on cleaning the gun like nothing. He, though, was funny, hit it. FAQ, you need to tell the police we were the police. I hope you don't associate with this person anymore. Nope. Second Amendment, not American gun training. He knew it was against all regulations. That's why it was so funny according to him. This guy still has a gun. Nope, this was 20 years ago. His gun privilege was revoked from him after an incident when he shoot at a wall over a colleague's head. He shoot wide over his head and was surprised by everyone's response to the incident. I wasn't trying to kill him or anything, that's why I shoot over his head, he said. Story 7. I dated someone who I now believe is a sociopath. The most uncomfortable thing while we were dating was that he would constantly whisper things in my ear in public in earshot of other people like, do you think I look hot right now? Or, do you think I'm cool? And the first few times I thought he was joking, so I laughed and had get angry. He wanted a serious answer. He wanted me to tell him how much I wanted to jump his bones right there in front of all of our friends. While they were watching and listening, I'd get lectured afterwards like, you really insulted me personally when you laughed at me in front of everyone. He could also cry on cue to get what he wanted, and as soon as he got what he wanted, it would instantly switch off and head turn very serious, and tell me what a horrible person I was. The instant emotional switches are disarming. When he broke up with me, I went from being his favorite person in the world to instantly at the very bottom of his list. He laughed when I cried on multiple occasions, calling me ridiculous. What's very alarming about people like him is how many people they can get on their side with their charm. None of his current friends know anything about his behavior behind closed doors. And they're all new people. All the people who caught on when we were dating are gone from his life. He has convinced his new friends I'm a psychopath because I try to tell others what happened, so whenever I say anything about what a creep he is, I get brigaded by the new people who are now being manipulated. Also, he is completely dead in the face and eyes until you interact with him, and then it's like he becomes animated. Story 8. I've been longtime friend with sociopath. He is honestly like my brother. We have developed this relationship that basically treats me like his moral compass. But it doesn't always work. He is still manipulative and cruel at times, and he does only truly care about himself. But he tries to be a good person because he doesn't want to be in This being said, my most uncomfortable moment with him would have to be when he was telling me about watching some guy almost die. He was telling me how he knew he should have stopped watching and helped him, but he was too interested in what the outcome would be if he didn't help. It was creepy to know that as hard as he may try to be a decent person, sometimes he still can't help himself. Story 9, he once tried to manipulate me to come in and work basically 50 hours, 10 of which would be off the clock so that I didn't get overtime, because he knew that if he could keep labor low on his shift, he could get a promotion. He would also expressly lie to my face about giving me a break, saying verbatim, "He'll come back here in a moment and take over, so that you can go on break." Then he would just never come. Then when the time has passed to where a break would be irrelevant, i.e., 30 minutes before my shift is over, head offer again. Story 10, I have a friend who's a pathological liar. He's also mostly Scottish in heritage, Northern Scotland, where the Viking influence is. He's 68, 350 pounds when he's watching his weight, for 100 when he isn't, and there's a lot of muscle to go with everything else. The lies aren't all that awful most of the time. He's known as a very entertaining storyteller, and everyone knows he'll embellish greatly from time to time. But he can't keep a girlfriend. Apparently he can't be honest, is a pathological cheater. The lies catch up with his relationships in a few weeks at most. One day we were in a taxi together, and he got the idea that the driver was taking a route that was unnecessarily long. He stopped the cheerful story he was telling me mid-sentence. His face changed, and he barked at the cab driver in a voice ID never heard, loud and angry and aggressive. The cab driver immediately pulled over and let us out without paying. And a good thing, too. I think my friend was about to kill him. I was petrified in my seat. I felt like he might kill everyone in range. I was terrified. It was the last time I spent time with him, though I'd known him for 20 years. I later learned that he won't associate with someone after they've seen him snap, as one of his other ex-friends put it. Story 11, when he would tell a story that I was a part of and make up huge lies of what happened. Even sometimes switch his role in mine, and I would just awkwardly nod my head and wonder if he truly remembered it that way. Story 12, he had a gas-powered pellet gun, and we were 13 years old, and it was one of my first times being high. He had me against the wall and gave me 5 minutes to choose between him shooting me in the genitals or in the head. If I didn't choose, he said he was just going to go nuts. I just kind of fidgeted in place, saying, "You're going to kill me." I was 13 and high, and at the end of the 5 minutes, he told me he was with me. He also emptied a huge box of matches into the sink one time, and when we all told him not to, he called us pussies and lit it all on fire. He was a major pyro. I'm pretty sure he's in jail now. I'm 19, and he's 20. Story 13, probably when I found out he was dating 3 other girls at the same time, and the girls and I exchanged screenshots of conversations with him. How creepily similar the way he spoke to us all. Charming, nice dude. Unless you don't give him what he wants. Story 14, in high school. My boyfriend at the time and I share a math class together. It was well known we were dating, so I would always take him his homework via teacher's request. If he missed, he skipped a lot. I broke up with him over Christmas break. He cheated on me. Math teacher obviously still assumed we were together, so he asked me to bring him his homework. I did. Got to his house. Wanted to drop it off at his doorstep. He told me to come in and explain it to him. He locked his bedroom door and started saying, like, "If I can't have you, then no one else can. I could get you back in a second. Just admit it," etc. Then the true kicker, if I killed you or if you died, I would keep your body in my closet or hung behind my door, just to have with it. Disclaimer, I never had with him, and I think that killed him. He then proceeded to try to make out with me and jam his hands down my pants. He actually thought it was endearing and had no idea why I was so upset. I got out, called my mom to pick me up, and ran back to the school. He lived close. Terrifying. To this day, I'm still horrified about it. And him, last I heard, he was trying to be a magician, looks like Charles Manson, and is in and out of psych wards. Story 15, my sister, who I no longer have contact with, has psychopathic tendencies. My worst moment was about 5 years ago. She was showing me a new knife of hers, a giant blade with serrations down the back. I remember looking in her eyes, and there was this cold, alien look to them. The hairs on the back of my neck rose, and I had this idea she was going to stab me. I realized my instinct for picking up on her thinking about stabbing me. She didn't stab me, but I kept thinking about it, and I truly think she was imagining what it would be like to stab me with her new knife. Story 16, I have a lot of stories about my sociopathic former roommate, but one of the most uncomfortable moments I had with him was when he stared me dead in the eyes and asked, bravado, how can I express more realistic emotions? And then he became slightly annoyed when my one answer was have them in the first place. Story 17, someone in our extended family. He offered to kill my cat for me to save a vet bill. The cat wasn't sick or old. He was just very enthusiastic about helping us out with that particular issue. He's not allowed to be alone with pets anymore. Edit, this wasn't the first incident. Actually, at a family gathering, he took the family dog for a walk. He returned with the dog soaking wet. It was December, and he claimed the dog had chased a squirrel into the river. People didn't entirely believe that story. Somehow, he also tends to just leave gatherings without telling anyone, sleeps in the garden instead of on the couch, and he rarely blinks. He is just altogether a little odd. Story 18, my brother is a sociopath, as well as a homeless heroin junkie. For the most part, he stays hidden from view and away from my family. During his active times where he comes around looking for money from family members is the most uncomfortable because when he doesn't get it, he resorts to burglary. Having to leave home, not knowing if he'll be buglarized is stressful. I wish he would just OD or go to prison already. It would be so much better for everyone. Story 19, she used to brag about her therapist diagnosing her as a sociopath, and then obviously deny it when it was ever brought up. I think the moment that put it all into perspective was when she manipulated me into having a threesome with her, and her ex, she knew I was in love with her, because she thought it would get him to take her back. It goes a little deeper than that, but that's the gist of it. Story 20, I just about stabbed my sociopath stepfather in the guts while doing dishes. Had been doing his thing, which was sitting behind me about 15 feet away and staring at me, without saying anything for about 20 minutes while I cleaned up the kitchen after dinner. 20 minutes of staring. I was washing a butcher knife when a hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I realized he was right behind me. He was a big guy, and I'm not sure how I did not hear him. I turned around with the knife and instinctively shoved it at him. He managed to in his gut and not get cut. I was saying over and over again, get a fuck away from, get a fuck away from, get a fuck away from. He didn't make sound and went upstairs. I was 16 years old, and that's when I knew one of us was going to go to jail if nothing changed. Married one. Last straw was the day I caught his reflection as I passed by. Pure evil and hatred in his eyes. I told him I was leaving the following week. He said, if I ever see you somewhere with someone else, I want to say a word to you. I said, okay. He then added, they'll just walk up to you and shoot you in your pretty face. I was moving some things out and looked under the bed for a pair of shoes. Found his guns, fully loaded and out of their cases under his side of the bed. I went to the cops. Nothing came of it. Fast forward and he remarries before the ink is dry on the divorce. New wife shoots him in the head and kills him in his sleep. Proceeds to kill herself by ODing on his pain pills. Yeah, I sleep better these days. Story 21, my uncle. We found out things in bits and pieces. My dad and he worked together. He got my dad fired by saying all sorts of lies to their boss, and then pretended to be the white knight by offering him a job in another country where he's living. Money was tight back then, and we were in a lot of debt, so dad agreed. He took him there, gave him work, but also made him a slave to his wife and kids who also lived there. Dad was expected to cook food, wash the dishes, clean up the dining table after Uncle's family ate, and then eat himself. Yeesh, Dad didn't tell us until much later. According to the rules set by Uncle, he wasn't to contact us often, should mind his own business even if his daughter didn't turn up home all night, and keep his mouth shut about work. Dad was miserable there, and we couldn't do much because, again, that job was a welcome relief to us. Uncle, meanwhile, would come every night to our home, have breakfast and dinner that my mom generously cooked because his family was abroad, while bitching about my dad in front of us. One day, I had finally reached my breaking point, and I started crying because I felt horrible for Dad, who was trying so hard to make things right for us. Uncle just sat opposite to me, smiling. We'll never forget that psycho grin on his face. Days later, Dad suddenly turned up unannounced at home. Turns out had been dumped by Uncle to our city without prior notice. Dad had no guts to tell us what happened. We realized Uncle was a psychopath later. Had routinely mentally torture people and enjoy their misery, while pretending to offer sympathies and help. He's in a powerful spot, so he offers his victims jobs. Once they accept, he makes them entirely dependent on him. Had them put his victims under even more psychological stress, be it threatening to cut off ties or getting them fired if they disagreed with him. My dad was really messed up for days, head swing from utter despair to not speaking for days to extreme violence to absolutely broken. Got beaten up a bit for trying to calm him down. Dad could finally regain his mental sanity after we cut off all ties to that uncle. Last we heard, he wants to contact my dad because they're brothers and people realize what a piece of he is, so they avoid him too. Dad's like, oh nah. When he took the opportunity of being alone with my mom for 1 minute to stare her down and ask if she thought he was mature for his age, he's creepy. Story 22. I remember from a very early age that my mom would just stand in the entrance to my room with a knife. This didn't happen very often, maybe 2 to 3 times a year when I was 9. I finally asked her why she would do this. I'll never forget how she said this. She looked me dead in the eyes and said that I was a mistake and she was deciding if she should do what she should have done a long time ago. I asked to move in with my grandma a week later. Thinking about how she said it still gets my heart racing 22 years later. I don't know if I can accurately describe it, but every single hair on my body stood straight up. I was paralyzed with fear, and I felt like if I moved too suddenly she would strike. Backstory: Mom had me when she was 16 and regularly told me that I ruined her life. She was a habitual drug user and alcoholic. She told me that if she had the money, she would have had an abortion. Story 23, I dated one a bit over a decade ago. He fits the description of sociopath more than psychopath, but he's also narcissistic. We dated on high school for a little over a year. Aside from the constant gaslighting, lies, manipulation, and threats, he was basically a shitty person who warped my mind so much that I actually believed I'd be nothing without him. Whether driving erratically with me in car when I questioned him, or threatening physical violence on me and my family if I broke up with him, he was truly terrifying by the end of our relationship. The absolutely most uncomfortable, terrifying moment was when he put a loaded hunting rifle in my face. He was addicted to weed. I don't believe weed's a dangerous drug at all, but he was so psychology warped that he believed he was going through severe physical and mental withdrawals if he went a day or two without smoking. One night he decided he was going to rob a small convenience store in his town for weed money. I stepped in front of his door to block his path, and he pointed the gun at me. I bravely broke up with him a few days later, blocked him on social media, wouldn't answer his calls, and wouldn't answer the door when he showed up to my parents' house. It took months for him to get the point that I was serious. 12 years later, and I still have nightmares of him. Story 24, my sister feels nothing but rage. When she doesn't feel rage, she feels literally nothing. She spent her life manipulating everyone around her and satisfying that rage. She mercilessly abused me growing up. She tried to kill me 3 times before I moved out. No one believed me. Because I was older and larger, I was always considered to be the aggressor, even when I was being violently assaulted in my sleep. Living with her was a nightmare. The most uncomfortable moment between us wasn't something she did to me. It was something I considered doing to her. I'd been sent up to the crawl space to get an ornament. You could only access it from a ladder in the garage. When I grabbed it and turned around, she was at the top of the ladder, staring at me. There wasn't any room for her to come up. She was just waiting there, staring. She told me to get out of the way, and I told her I couldn't. There wasn't room for 2 people in the crawl space. She'd have to go back down the ladder. She immediately switched to rage. She said she hated me, and she wasn't going to let me down from the crawl space. It was 110 degrees in there, and I was already exhausted. I remember thinking, she's at the top of the ladder, over a cement floor. I could make this stop. Just say it was an accident. I'm only 12. No one would convict me. As soon as I thought that, her face suddenly went blank, and she went back down the ladder. Story 25, I think my best friend may have been. For example, she got a job at a business that she wanted to learn, and when she had made enough money to start her own business, she totaled her employee's van, hired off the designer, and stole all the clients. Then she paid the designer way less than she had promised, and then closed her business completely in a few months when she was bored. She also pulled really bad things in relationships, which I really don't want to get into. Well, anyway, she was about to ruin someone's life. Again, I couldn't take it anymore and ratted her out. That is when I had heard all the lies she had spun her whole life, that I lived with her and she supported me, and I was a heroin addict, that she had starred in major films, that she was prom queen. So I cut her out of my life, and after weeks of her calling me and begging me to come back, I was sitting at home, looked up and saw her standing over me. My first thought was that she killed my dog. She hadn't. Story 26, I'm an ex-friend of a sociopath. I think it was when we were hanging out and we started arguing about me going to his house. I'd left my wallet there, and I told him this and told him we needed to go back so I could get it. He then started claiming that his parents didn't like me and didn't want me at his house. He said since they weren't home, that would just make it worse. I just kept saying I need my wallet and that he could get it for me. He proceeded to call me selfish and a monster for arguing with him. Like he yelled in my face in a public area. I was shocked and had nothing to say. Then he proceeded to act like nothing happened, asking me if we should get food, etc. I eventually got my wallet back from him. He didn't spend any money of mine or anything, but needless to say, we aren't friends anymore. Honestly, I didn't even consider him a sociopath until telling my therapist about how he manipulated me into thinking everything was my fault and how me being better mentally was never enough. She basically told me straight up he's a sociopath, and it clicked. He used me just to fill his ego. Story 27, I'm friends with a legit psychopath. I am on mobile, so it'll be brief. Not all psychopaths are necessarily a danger to society in the sense of physical violence. Crazy or unreasonable. G is a close friend of mine. He is of shallow moral character, devious, manipulative, ready to screw anyone out of money, and capable of physical violence when pressed. He's scary, that said. He is deeply intelligent, quick with a laugh, Non-judging. You could talk to this guy about anything. He just doesn't care. He's a lot of fun to talk to or party with because he is so unique. I trust him to be himself. He has never screwed me over except I seem to lose when I went into business with him. The most creepy he's been, and he knows I feel this way, is when we talk about moralistic standards for society. Essentially, he thinks the weak and stupid, but who makes that call should be essentially weeded out, put on farms or something, shot. He give no about anyone else, save for a select few. He's not racist, or he just thinks he's better than others based on smarts, looks, ability. He feels the dumb should not be allowed to thrive. Creepy. Huh. I remember one conversation we had. When drunk, I couldn't finish because we weren't getting anywhere with it. He wants change. He doesn't empathize. That said, he's a reasonable person. He's not going to put his darker, non-profiting thoughts into action. He's not interested. He likes money and doesn't mind ripping people off, a businessman. Cunning. He exists for profit. That said, he'd help me out of any kind of sticky situation, mostly for the fun of it. He's bored a lot and understands he needs others. He likes me because I'm interesting and feels I'm on his level. We speak openly about his psychopathy because I'm so interested in it. We've been friends for 7 years. We're close for 3 years before he moved to another city. I stayed at his house in 2016 for a couple weeks. Feel free to AMA. Story 28. I dated one. First of all, he was a pedophile as he was 20 and I was 14. My parents cut off all contact with him, but I snuck behind their backs using a texting app. He would often text me things like, "I want to eviscerate you. I wish I could eat your insides," etc. And also told me about how he had with his dog and lied about being raped to see how I would react. At one point, he broke into my room, masturbated using a pair of my period-stained undies. He had a blood fetish and texted me about it. My mom found out and drove all the way to this guy's house and threatened him. I was upset because I was 14 and this guy had convinced me I was too emotional and immature for anyone else to love but him, and also said he would kill himself if I left. But my mom was able to break my rose-colored glasses by writing a comprehensive list of every abusive, psychotic thing he had done to me. I broke up with him. That wasn't all, though. For a couple months after the breakup, he would find out where and when I was going to events, and he would be there following me. I even went out of state to a convention, and he followed me across state borders. Thankfully, my mom was there, and that was the final straw. She got a restraining order against him. To this day, I am eternally thankful to my mom for protecting me, even if I was so angry at her for keeping me from talking to him at the time. Story 29, I was in the mental hospital with him. He was my roommate. He was a diagnosed sociopath while I was just in there for a suicide attempt. He jizzed all over the toilet, sink, and shower handle and laughed at it. He made my bathroom unusable, and the staff thought I was trying to be funny when I reported it. He's still one of the funniest guys I've ever met, even though he was in there for making homicidal threats. Story 30, honest. Just normal conversation. We sensationalize it a lot in the media, but really having conversation with someone that can't feel empathy is super boring. Mehei, I was driving to work today, and some guy cut across 4 lanes of traffic and almost caused an accident. Sociopath friend. Okay, me, alright, well good, taking a euro in my eyes. Story 31, by far figuring out how she dangerous. She actually was. I grew up with her until she was removed from the house due to trying to burn it down with us in it. She said it was a suicide attempt. Okay, whatever, maybe. Years later, I find out her house burned down with her disabled daughter in it. She said it was an accident, candle, or some bullshit like that. Possible coincidence, but highly unlikely. She did other things too, e.g., poured paint over every item I owned when I was around 10, slept with a knife under her pillow, etc. Story 32, late to the game, but a friend of mine is a functioning psychopath. He has some severe anger issues, but knows on a logical level, not an emotional one, what the implications of unleashing this are. He has no remorse. He could kill his mother and not care, but he knows this is morally wrong, even if he doesn't feel it's wrong. He can also be extremely manipulative with no remorse, and I've seen that come out to play sometimes, and it isn't pretty. His ego is well endowed. He's got one of the highest pain tolerances that I've seen part of a suspension group, and he's a really great cuddler. To meet him, he's pretty strange, but all in all, he's a decent person, and I admire that he's decided to be better than his diagnosis. Story 33, in high school and college. I knew a guy who kept file folders with information about people he knew, actual file folders, labeled with their names. He would take notes on people he knew, what he thought of as their personality traits, their strengths that he might have to overcome, their weaknesses that he felt could exploit. These notes, along with his detailed analysis journals, because seriously, he analyzed everyone he knew, would go into his folders. I only saw these folders a single time, but I saw his note-taking almost every time I was around him. He didn't try to hide it. Story 34, I knew this kid in 8th grade. Michael, I considered him a friend, but he was absolutely loony. He was simultaneously a but likable because he was really funny. He'd constantly pit friends against each other and encourage people to fight each other. I always knew something was sort of off. Then some girl he dated said he raped her, and he'd brag about his dog. Guy was off. Story 35, my brother is a psychopath. I could tell you so many stories about him. You could make it into a movie. He's an incredible con artist and somehow has never been thrown in jail despite having committed fraud multiple times and stolen tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. My mother has NPD, which is in a similar class of disorders, and she is far more dangerous than my brother. That said, my brother would probably sell his only child if he got enough money for it. I just don't think he'd be capable of killing anyone. Dated someone with whom I shared a similar dark sense of humor, and the week before I finally figured out what he was staring at me, and I stared back. One of those let's gaze into each other's eyes moments went quickly awry when I got a weird feeling and said, "It's like I can see all the way through you to your soul," to which he responded, "I have no soul." Of course, then all the darkly humorous things he said over the course of the relationship flew back at me in my face, and I realized he probably wasn't joking most of the time. Story 36, my best friend in high school was a sociopath. Though I didn't realize it until later in life, he was good-looking and astoundingly manipulative. He could talk pretty much any girl in a bed. I was always a bit socially awkward and never got laid at that age. Whenever I confided in him that I liked someone, he would target them and them. They could be a nice girl, virgin, whatever, it didn't matter, he was that good. One of the most uncomfortable moments of my life was after we graduated and we were hanging out, and he got invited over to a girl's house who we graduated with. He knew I thought she was cute, said it was a party, and that she had said she liked me. Well, we got there, and it was only her roommate, and her roommate's boyfriend, and I didn't drive. He immediately goes in her room, and the girl, I was really pissed off and confronted him about it. Of course, he made me seem like and told everyone that I invited myself over, and made me feel sad and pathetic. I completely lost it and broke down crying in anger and felt ridiculous. Luckily, her roommate was nice enough to drive me home. That was his M.O. He wasn't violent or anything, but he liked hurting people emotionally. That night was the last night I ever spoke to him. I still feel stupid for being friends that long. Story 37, my ex-husband told me he took my dog to his friend's house to live. Find out a year later that he took her to his father's land and shot her multiple times because the first was not enough. He proceeded to skin her and take out her parts, pulled out her heart, and showed his friend laughing. Told me his friend was being about it. He laughed and was completely unaware of any wrongdoing. Ugh, so glad I'm out of that situation. Disgusting human being. Story 38, attention. Serious tag, notice jokes, puns, and off-topic comments are not permitted in any comment, parent or child. Parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Report comments that violate these rules. Posts that have few relevant answers within the first hour and posts that are not appropriate for the serious tag will be removed. Consider doing an AMA request instead. Thanks for your cooperation and enjoy the discussion. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit message compose. Tor AskReddit if you have any questions or concerns. Story 39, a couple I know were having marital difficulties and were thinking of divorcing. It wasn't a done deal by any means, so they were both invited to this party. Most of the people in the party know the wife better, and the husband only slightly. He turns up, she does not. He goes to the host and asks if he can have a couple of minutes to announce something to everybody. Sure, says the host, no problem. Go ahead. He proceeds to get everybody's attention and publicly trash his wife, accusing her of infidelity and whatnot. The host throws him out of the party. He goes peacefully because he's now done what he came to do. Story 40, late to the party, but I went to Woodlawn High with Adnan Syed and remember him telling me about working as an EMT for a private ambulance service. The glee and excitement he had when telling me about how he liked to take an extra minute when connecting the patient to the ambulance oxygen supply was chilling. He liked to watch them gasp for air. Most of his runs were for folks changing nursing homes or residential facilities, and frequently they were on oxygen 247 to survive. It was really chilling. No, I didn't listen to Serial, but wow, how lucky for him. Yes, I knew Hey Lee and have the yearbook to prove it. You are right, I say he did it. Why? Because he did. Story 41, my ex. His sister died of cancer back in England. He was in Canada and couldn't afford to go. He tried to cry on the app balcony by himself, and all I felt was pity because the emotions were just not there. The tears would not form or fall.